Yeah. Friends who have joined in from the region of the Americas, a very good morning. Such of those from the region of the Eastern Mediterranean and Africa, a very good afternoon. And for all my friends back home in Asia, a very good evening. Well, it is mid of the week and an early evening, and it's heartening to see the number of participants. We almost have reached 50 now, and I'm sure many more will join in. I'm not surprised though, because it's the importance of the project, the company associated that's going to participate in this, Zydus Group, and the person himself, Dr. Keyur Parekh. So before I start, let me do a bit of formalities. This is Syed Ahmed from EBPMN, Emerging Biopharma Manufacturers Network. It's a pan-global organization with secretariat out of Butantan in Brazil. The treasury operates out of Sinopharm, CNBG in China, and we have the registered office back home in India. We have members from Nicaragua to Brazil, South Africa to Egypt, all the way down here from Bangladesh, India, and so on. And the network is growing strength to strength, month on month, year on year. And we have more members coming on board with one single objective of enabling local manufacturing of biopharmaceuticals. This webinar is co-hosted by ABLE. Unfortunately, the office bearers of ABLE India could not join this. They were supposed to be co-hosting. The reason being all of them are en route to San Diego for the Bio US. So they are in the aircraft as of now. But then we are glad and thankful to ABLE India for co-hosting this, to play a co-host as far as this fireside chat is concerned. ABLE India, as all of us are aware, is an organization, a not-for-profit organization, which represents the Indian biotech sector, not just the healthcare biotech, but also the industrial biotech and agri-biotech. They have more than 400 members from manufacturing organizations, venture capitalists, law firms, investment banks, and so on. And between ABLE and EBPMN, this association does have a synergistic relationship where we bring strength to each other. With that, let me start this fireside chat, although it's a warm evening in Mumbai, almost about 33. And I'm sure it's even more warmer out there in Ahmedabad, where Dr. Keyur is operating from. Dr. Keyur comes from Zydus, and I don't think Zydus needs any introduction. It's a $2 billion group with 25,000 employees, 30 plus manufacturing sites, operating in more than 55 countries, from generics to NCEs, biosimilars to NBUs, vaccines, you name it, they have it all. And in this journey, Dr. Keyur Parekh has played a pivotal role. He's at the helm of affairs as the President of Corporate Strategy and Business Development, striking strategic partnerships, relationships, business development initiatives, and so on. He's got more than 2 decades of experience in the industry with large organizations. I've had a brief stint with him working out of Nicholas Piramal, subsequent to which he moved out to Zydus, and ever since has been playing a key role at Zydus for over about 17 years. So thanks, Dr. Keyur, for joining us on this fireside chat. It's a pleasure to host you.
Well, thanks, Mr. Syed, and for hosting me on this such a lovely evening. First of all, let me just do the formalities. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whichever the part of the world you are. Thank you for joining on this webinar and on this very important platform of EBPMN, because I believe that the organization is going to play a pivotal role in shaping up the policies for the biopharmaceuticals globally. So thank you, and I will prefer to call Syed Bhai. That's how I've been used to calling Mr. Syed. So I'll continue my way. And Dr. Syed Bhai, I'll also request you to call Keyur only the way we have been comfortable with each other, rather than calling me with the prefix.
Yeah, no issues, no formalities. I think that's one of the positive sides of having a fireside chat, where we can afford to be a little informal with each other. Just that we are formally attired.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So without much ado, for almost 60, close to 60 participants who have joined us, We have a set of questions from a very, very pragmatic and objective perspective, not getting into any theory or academia, because that's what you are known for, Keyur, the way I've seen you grow up the ranks. So let's get into the very, very practical aspects. And I'm sure that's what the audience and the participants would appreciate as well.
Ready to get roasted. Ready to get roasted. That's how I know you, Rashid, bhai.
No, absolutely not. And I think while we get set with a few questions, we should be happy to take some questions from the audience as well. Sure. Because it's very unusual in today's scenario for an organization to take so many leaps at one time. We know for sure that Zydus was at the helm of introducing the world's first bivalent monoclonal antibody against rabies, against a monoclonal antibody for infectious diseases. On the same hand, we observed that the DNA vaccine was again the first time in the world, so spearheading innovation all across. So the first question around this is, how would you describe, before getting into Zydus, a bit on the global market landscape for biosimilars and biologics, and what are the key trends that you foresee that are driving this industry?
So, Sanjay, I'll just break this question into two parts. One are global trends in the healthcare industry, and then I'll focus on biologics and biosimilars, more specific about it. So for me, and I'll be just for me, there are four trends which have been emerging if I see the current pharmaceutical industry. One, on reforms into the healthcare space. We are seeing a lot of pressures on healthcare budget from various countries and putting the drug manufacturer under the severe pricing pressures. We have seen IRA coming in the US. We have been seeing that Europe has been proposing reducing the exclusivity from 10 to 8 years for the innovative molecules if they have not been launched for 27 years, if they are not launched in all 27 member states. So we are seeing such kind of a dynamics happening in the regulated market. What is more important and what has been more encouraging, why I'm talking about a gloomy side, but what is more important for us is I'm also seeing a positive trend stating that the universal coverage for the certain diseases have been increasing across the globe, and that will provide a great opportunity. Second dynamics I'm seeing is a shift in the demographic profile, and the lifestyle expectancies have gone up, and which has really created an increased disease burden on the lifestyle-based diseases as well as certain terminal diseases. It is also augmented with the good investments in the diagnostic sector, and which has really helped them to diagnose early, and again has provided a great opportunity. Third, and the most important, the patient experience and expectations have gone up, which we have seen in the last, but patients' experience and expectations, they have been looking for both. And finally, the fourth major trend that I've been seeing is moving towards most personalized therapy. So I'm just saying, as an industry, these are the four mega trends. I will just talk about the macro trends that we have been facing. Coming to the biologics, it is in a very fascinating space and a very close to my heart. Biologics and biosimilars. I'll start touching upon the biologics. The revolutionary models or revolutionary discoveries that were talked upon in the form of monoclonal antibodies are now become a commonplace. We are seeing a newer modalities coming into it, be it the mRNA techno platforms, be it the ADCs, and be it the microbiome. People have been working, and we'll see a lot of introduction happening on all these three platforms. Having said this, if I'm talking about the value terms, the biologics market will be valued around close to $500 billion globally, and which is expected to rise to $1,500 billion approximately in next 10 years, which is 2.5x close to 3x. Having said this, the journey is also going to fuel by the platforms what I spoke about, but of course, I need to add two more platforms that will be CAR-Ts and gene therapies, which will be really fueling the huge growth in out. And last year, it was a very breakthrough year for us, where we have seen US FDA and MHRA approving the first therapy, gene therapy for sickle cell anemia and thalassemia. It's a great impact, great boon that people have been doing about it.
Yeah, and thanks for that. Thanks for that. Yeah, please continue. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry,
Yeah,
the
one more
last 2
aspect.
points, I'll just touch on the biologics and move quickly on the biosimilar side. Out of the 10, nothing new. Out of the 10 molecules that we see globally, 8 are biologics. And at biosimilars, we are seeing a phenomenal growth. Just to give one data point, out of close to 560 billion that US spent over a period on the medicines, 260 billion was for the biologics. So you can understand the opportunity for the biosimilar manufacturers lies in the global market. I'll just stop over here, Syed Bhai. We can go on because
Thanks
it's
for
a very
that.
fascinating topic for
Thanks.
me.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Keyur. I think you've thrown so many numbers at us. We would be sharing the recording because for at least some of us in the audience, we would need to go through this, decipher those numbers and look at it. But just to recap on the last number that's quite fascinating. You said out of the $560 billion the US spent, 260
Yes.
billion was on biologics and biosimilars.
No, on biologics. So on primarily biologics.
So it's more than 50% in the large molecules.
Approximately various data points. It ranges between 45 to 50. Which data points you see, which analyst reports you see.
Yeah, but broadly, this is what it seems. I mean, that's quite amusing.
And said that also
so with that, I think.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying that it also collaborates that out of the 10 top molecules which have been generating revenue globally, 8 are of biologics. Even if you move the peptides out, it's 7.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with that, I think quite a few of our participants would want to know the success story of Zydus over the last 7 decades or so, to a leader not only in the Indian arena, but being looked upon as a leader across the globe. Success not only in the regulated markets, but also in the semi-regulated markets and also the low middle income countries. So could you throw some light on the journey of Zydus? What makes it click and tick?
For sure. And the journey has great to do with the promoters. And we are fortunate that currently the 3rd generation of promoters are being really involved in the operations. And all 3 generations are a pharmacist by qualification or by training. So it only talks about that their involvement into the business. I'm going to say India, as this was been expanding, they had a great opportunities, could have been expanded to the different areas, but by training a pharmacist, they chose to continue to be in the pharma industry, and that brings the stability to the business. So I will just start with that. The company was been founded in 1952 by 2 friends, Mr. Ramanbhai Patel and Indravadan Modi. It was then called Cadila Labs. In 1995, they decided to pursue different dreams, and in 1995, that's where Cadila Healthcare was been formed, with a turnover of 250 crore rupees. In today's term, if I have to just put it, is close to $30 million. We started with journey, primarily as evolution for any pharma company in India would have been. We would focus on the India market, but with 2 major differentiators. One, we were been backwardly integrated, where most of the people were been relying on the importing the APIs from the different geographies. Secondly, we were been catering unmet needs at an affordable price to the Indian population. And that was been the principle or a credo for us or a motto for us, which till now every Zydus has been driven for. Evolution, as most of the companies in India would have evolved, we also in a small molecules evolved from India to emerging markets and to the most regulated markets like United States or Europe. While on the journey of evolution, we also build the capabilities on all glandular form, including the injectables, complex injectables, but distinctly. And one very clear thing was been driving us is to really cater to the unmet needs at affordable price. And that's why some of our investments way back you will see in the transdermals or vaccines as well. So we evolved, and today as an organization, we have been pivoting towards the innovation because we believe it's a time that West has given a lot of innovation. East will start giving innovation to the global world. And that's where major investments have been happening for Zydus. today we are close to $2.5 billion with more than 26,000 employees working for us, working in a different compartments of the business.
Excellent, excellent. I think broadly, if I were to look at it from the Indian perspective, we do have large companies who have been exceptionally successful, but focused purely on therapeutics, like small molecules and to a certain extent on large molecules. Or we have companies who have been exclusively focusing on vaccines. And if they have a share into pharmaceutical side, or for that matter, even biologics and biosimilars, the emphasis is quite less. But I think if there's one company which has a clear footprint and focus on all three aspects, I think it's Zydus Life Sciences, which comes to my mind.
Thanks, Sheldon.
Yeah.
What I really missed to refer in that what made this company as a great organization, what we have been talking about, is a thorough patient centricity. We do everything keeping patient in our mind and providing an affordable access to them. And so that's why you will see us across the value chain of pharma.
Yeah, so I think very clearly what you talked about is the vision from the promoters, the commitment, and generation after generation. You have the third generation at the helm, and yet their commitment to enabling affordable healthcare is just unswerving. That's one. And second, you talked about the backward integration, which means you have the full value chain, which enables you to take decisions as appropriate best in the interest of the community. So I think it sets it very clear. With that, let's get to the innovation part. Although we did touch about the fact that you do have quite a few firsts, not just in India, but the world over, whether it's the therapeutic monoclonal antibody for rabies, the DNA vaccine, the first oral therapy for CKD. What drives innovation out there, and what enables you to have that cutting edge or the leading edge in innovation?
So a couple of things probably, and as again, I will say it drives from the vision. As an organization, we are very clearly driven saying that if we have to make a difference and if we have to make an impact to a patient's life, it has to be through innovation. While we have been, there is an arm which has been working on providing an access and affordability to the patients, but we also believe that there are areas where there is unmet needs, and that's why we are clearly focused to bring that. And that's why as a group, we have chosen that we will be more focusing our innovation on the orphan diseases or the diseases where we don't have a current approved therapeutic option. So that's why you would have seen that our first currently in a small molecules, the clinical trials which we have been undergoing in United States. Now they have a therapy approved, but it was a PBC, primary biliary cholangitis. Zydus was the first company to start trials on it. Of course, we lost the race in recruitment part of it, but we were the first company to identify that indications, going after that indication. We have a product which has been launched by our US folks in the newborn child. And what has been really driving us is to really make an impact to the patient's life where there are no approved therapeutic options to them.
Okay, nice.
And we are all
goes without saying that most of the innovations are IP secured. Although they are IP secured, but you still look at affordability.
Absolutely.
So nice. With that, I would like to request the audience that while we do have a couple of questions and there would be some informal conversation as well, please do type in your questions in the chat box, and we will be happy to take them as we go along rather than waiting for a Q&A session towards the end. So please do type in your questions in the chat box as we go about. Let's quickly next get on to the collaborations. We know if you have to accelerate, you have to collaborate. And Zydus does have a history of very successful collaborations. So can you just throw some light on the collaborations and how they've impacted the growth of Zydus?
So what we definitely believe at Zydus is everything we can't do on our own. We have to partner, and partner are integral part of our growth journey. And that's why you would have seen that. And we believe a partnership which has been mutually rewarding. And I'll just before I go to the collaborations that we did in the recent past, I'll talk about fundamental collaborations that we did with 3 companies. First, with Pfizer. That was based on our manufacturing capabilities, and that's the only collaboration that has globally where Pfizer and the partner is on a 50-50. So it talks about collaborating with a company which has a great commercial skill, and we had a great manufacturing capabilities. A second collaboration, and again there were moves. So it was earlier Hospira and then Pfizer. So we have survived the change in ownerships, and the JV is been growing. The second JV I want to talk about is with Takeda. It was with Nycomed before that, big villain, but it started with a collaboration or a partnership on the intermediates. And as we moved and as mutual trust expanded on both of us, the JV is now not only manufacturing the key starting materials for the Takedas, but also some of their APIs are going to get manufactured out of India. And that was basis on our research capabilities on the small molecule synthetic molecules. And the third collaboration was based with the Bayer, which we just exited. I'm sure a couple of you would have seen in the news. It was on a base of a marketing and marketing capabilities in India. So we believe that in the journey of the growth, partners play a pivotal role, and all these partners have played a pivotal role in where we are today.
Nice. Thanks for that, Keyur. We have 2 questions in the chat box. One is from Miss or Dr. Nidhi Shetty. The question is, how big is the biosimilar export market in India compared to the last few years, I think, vis-a-vis 2020 or so? I mean, you can look at it not just in terms of numbers, but also in terms of growth. Yeah, so just over broadly.
So a couple of factors which will play in, and I'm great that you brought this question in. Currently, if you see for the small molecule, the largest market for any small manufacturer, the player which are into the generics also will be the United States. Currently, the regulatory agencies of United States require a very stringent path to be followed. And that's why, though there are good number of biosimilar players in the US, but the adoption is pretty slow because it's still not switchable. While we have seen early moves taken by an MHRA that's in the UK, which now is been open to discuss with the manufacturers to get an approval basis on pharmacokinetic profiles, which was the case in the small molecules, and which allowed the industry to grow, industry to expand, and bringing down the overall cost. So as of now, the numbers may look small, but they have been growing rapidly, and we see that in midterm to long term, it will be similar to the generics, the way it has been played out.
Okay, clear. The questions have been coming in from the audience. There is another one where the individual hasn't named, it is showing as an anonymous attendee. In your opinion, which are the major challenges for India becoming a truly leader in developing and launching new biologics and biosimilars in the US market?
Probably what we as a nation, one of the things what we have been doing great, to be very honest, on individual capacities.
Yes.
But what we need to do really is create an ecosystem, the ecosystem which will support a lot of startups, ecosystem in academia. As of now, we have been seeing a collaboration between industry and academia, but that has to go up tremendously. If you see the western part, there are great research molecules which has come out of the academia and which has been a great commercial success. As in India, we really need to create an ecosystem which thrives on innovation. And I'm realistic to my whatever best my rating supports me. China has taken a great leap in that. They've created an ecosystem. If you see the number of patents filing coming out of China, if you see the kind of innovations they have been doing, I mean, that has been interwoven from the lot of support from the government side, as well as creating an ecosystem where academia and industry have been collaborating in a great manner.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. And I think at least in the recent past, we do have quite a fillip as far as the ecosystem in India is concerned. I think DBT Parekh is promoting a lot of academia industry collaborations so that innovation can be supported. But yes, when it look coming to the biosimilars in the US market, that was part of the question. I suppose companies from Korea are also doing quite well. If you agree, companies like Celltrion and Samsung Biologics, they're
No,
doing
for sure.
exceptionally out there. Yeah.
So, as I rightly put forward, Sayed, currently the path for a registration of a molecule in US is long and requires a good investment.
Good investments, absolutely. Yeah. So
And
you need
likes
deep
of
pockets.
require a deep pockets. And I'm sure my colleagues would know that Sandoz themselves, I'm sorry for naming the company, but themselves failed twice on the biosimilar for the PEG-CSF. So it requires the patience as well, apart from the deep pocket, to really stay invested in the molecule and take it and seeing it. And then you require a commercial arm as well into the US. So it further requires.
So I think some good collaborations between Indian companies who are into biosimilars with some large companies could help where two could come together and then take things ahead.
So that's absolutely certain. And that's what we have been seeing now. People from the West have started looking up to the Indian systems, Indian partners, and you will soon see a couple of molecules been partnered with Indian.
Yeah. There's another question from Saad Sheikh. Apart from higher investments required for clinical trials and longer gestation period, what are the other factors why India still is far away for achieving the scale in biosimilar space it achieved in generic small molecule compounds? I think it broadly borders on what you already said, but then I will leave it to you.
No, I already spoke about it. The only thing which I like to augment is it also requires a commercial arm in US to really make it a commercial success.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure. There's another question. It says, just curious, what is the meaning of Zydus?
Zydus comes from a Greek god Zeus, which has been known in Greek language for the god of health and well-being, and that's where we have coined ourselves.
Yeah. There's another question from Mr. Jagadish Daler. World is looking at India for medicine, for their healthcare requirements. What is foresight for Indian biopharma in 5 to 10 years down the line? Innovation-driven unmet medical needs to the world. Again, I think it largely borders about or answers based on what questions you've already answered. But then again, I would leave it to you to add more insights.
I've already spoken about it, and I'm sure that going forward, next 5 to 7 years, we will have a huge impact on biopharmaceuticals.
Yeah. I think the questions are just pouring in, so I will leave aside the questions that I have for you, which also tend to encompass on various aspects because we wanted to give a real and all-encompassing perspective. But then I suppose the questions are quite some interesting, some intriguing. So let me take those. Anushri says, with the context you just laid out, given the limited collaboration between academia and industry, is India on par with Korea and China? I think, yes, we've just answered that. We are a bit behind Korea as far as biosimilars in the US are concerned and innovation as far as China is concerned on the biologic space. But yes, I think the recent the government has given a lot of encouragement to industry academia collaborations. There are very specific schemes like the PACE, the IAIRS, and so on, which encourage industry academia collaborations to bring out translational research. So I think that's where we will catch up with the rest who are actually out there in the US, whether it is China or Korea and so on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How is the Indian regulatory landscape shaping up vis-a-vis the LMICs and the Western agencies for biosimilars? That's the next question.
So let me just speak first good about the Indian regulators. What they've done is they've not followed the path of couple of my LMC countries regulators have followed. They have carved out their own biosimilar guidelines, which has been expected to follow. Unlike some of the LMIC countries, which still tends to follow the stringent regulatory authority guidelines and where they want a biosimilar manufacturer to comply with that. What it creates an entry barrier for an affordable medicines to those countries. And LMIC requires this with the aging population. So my compliments to Indian regulators that they have at least come out with an biosimilar guidelines, which is very useful for any biosimilar manufacturer. And the perspective, they are also been very stringent about the quality of the product. So they have introduced a step that each first commercial batches of the biosimilars has to get released from the NIB, National Institute of Biologics, which was the case with the vaccine that every batch has to get released from this CDL. So I'm just saying that while the regulators are very supportive, but they have a guidelines for what need to be followed, which will really enable affordable quality biosimilars coming to the market. And that's what we have been seeing, at least with the support of the Indian regulators or with the foresight nets of the Indian regulators. We could see the biosimilar of Humira coming in India, where the Humira did choose to launch for the various reasons. And you can see that various biosimilars that we have launched in India.
Yeah, fully with you. I think we were one of the first amongst the early ones to adopt biosimilar guidelines in India, which helped or gave clarity to a lot of biosimilar focused manufacturers. And same is the case with vaccines. We were amongst the first few in the LMICs to have the fully functional status, which allowed Indian companies to get their vaccines pre-qualified, and that enabled us become the largest suppliers to the UN healthcare agencies. So I think that's a good point, fair point. There's another question: why in US market biosimilars are not switchable, and what can we do to improve acceptance of biosimilars vis-a-vis original BLAs?
So currently, as you know, in a chemical synthesis, it's a carbon copy of a molecule that structurally NMR can prove that it's a carbon copy of the molecule that you are going to market in the US. Biologics, by virtue of it, though you are talking about the same cell line, but it's a different origin for sure. And that's why it has a safety concern. Apart from the efficacy you have been testing on it and long-term safety concern. So at least in my personal view, the stringent regulatory authorities like Europe and US have been taking a very calibrated view. And that's why I said it has recognized this, and they have been moving towards now acceptance of a dossier basis on a pharmacokinetic studies. And I'm sure this trend will continue as the healthcare burdens have been really pressing need for most of these countries.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that my view is there will be certainly a change in regulation, again, a personal view. But I'm seeing that, and which will really further encourage the adoption and switchability.
Yeah. We have a question from Genevieve from Biovac in Cape Town. Nice to see this question from you, Genevieve. The question is, what do you find to be the barriers of entry for biosimilars in Africa? Is this just a pricing issue or a deeper issue on the continent?
So pricing is never an issue because Africa as a union have multiple countries and authority to have a regulatory process. So the lead time to register a molecule in the African Union is huge. And that's why what happens is most of the biopharmaceutical manufacturers will prioritize those markets where relatively the entry barriers are less and has a huge potential. So eventually idea is to go, but it's just a timing issue. So it's a question of prioritizing prioritizing those markets which has a relatively clearly laid down regulatory pathway and huge potential. Second point to it is there are still a lot of markets which does not have a clearly laid down regulatory expectations for registering a biopharmaceutical in the respective country.
Yeah, I fully agree because the stringency varies across the continent, all across Africa.
Across the continent, yes.
Yeah, but the Francophone section is quite different, whereas South Africa is much more regulated and so on. So quite agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Algeria is a very different. South Africa is very different. Uganda is very different.
Yeah. So with that, we will get back to some of our questions that we had from an all-encompassing perspective. Dr. Keyur's perspective. Could you elaborate on some of the successful collaborations, co-development relationships that you have led in India? While you did talk about Pfizer, you did talk about some of the global collaborations, which are very interesting. Some of the collaborations that have enabled you pivot, which has helped you in India.
So two I would like to name at this point in time, and which I believe has done a great impact to the patient's life. As I spoke about the asset small molecules, both the small molecule assets said that you did refer about it. One is saroglitazar, where we are been under the clinical trials phase 2b/3 in US for the PPC. However, we have an approval in NASH in India. And what we could recognize is NASH, again, India being in a capital of diabetes, you will understand that most of the people will progress towards the NASH, starting with the NAFLD and then NASH. So India being a huge population, and we believe that alone we were not able to really reach out to the most of the patients that have been requiring this treatment. So having two things in mind, one is creating an access for the innovative medicines. And till recent past, there was not a single medicine which was been approved for the NASH globally. And Indian regulator approved basis on our clinical trials that we conducted in India. We thought that we had to partner with the like-minded companies which will really help us to create an access for the Indian population. And that's why we partnered with the two leading companies in the space of the gastro, one Torrent, second Lupin. And I'm very happy to say that it has really expanded the market. And currently we are reaching out to the patients which we were unable to reach out on our own. Secondly, we partnered with Sun for our HIF inhibitors, desidustat, and trust me, we have a great benefit to the patients suffering from the CKD, chronic kidney diseases, both on dialysis and non-dialysis, because virtually this will replace the erythropoietin requirements in the treatment regime. And this is an oral pill, which does not have to be taken on a daily basis.
Which is the molecule?
So India is in a world that your innovation reaches to the most needy patient. We require partners, and that's what we did.
Excellent. Yeah. There's one question from Dr. Krupa. With the rise in antimicrobial resistance, is Zydus interested in considering alternate therapies like the phage therapy?
Ma'am, you chose the wrong person to ask the question. Syed is the best equipped to answer because his company's been doing a lot of work on antimicrobial resistant area. So Syed, I'll allow you to answer that rather than me.
No, but for a change, I only asked the questions. So.
Definitely, ma'am, we have been interesting. We are, to be very honest, we have been seeing a need of an addition of antibiotics into the world because most of the antibiotics which are currently been available, we are seeing a resistance around it. And as a strategy team, we have been thinking that in our innovative work that we have been doing, shall we also include AI as one of the areas to work on? As of now, to be very, it's on a discussion phase, but we believe that there is a strong need. Somebody need to start working on the AI area.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Dr. Keyur. But yes, jokes apart, to answer what Dr. Kripa has asked. I think from our little experience of working closely with Zydus, I think it's a very enterprising organization, always on the lookout for newer alternative therapies. And phage therapies definitely would be of interest to you. Just that in India today, we don't have a regulatory guideline to develop and take things ahead as far as phage therapy is concerned. But yes, in the West and in the US, it is taking shape. And as soon as it's going to happen or likely to happen soon in India, I'm sure Keyur with Zydus would play a leading role out there to adopt such innovative therapies.
I agree, Syed, and that's why I crafted my answer very clearly, saying that as of now, that's not an area where we invest a huge. But once again we decide our next 5 years or 8 years strategy, if AI comes out in an area, then we definitely will be looking out for such kind of an asset.
Yeah. There is one question from Varnik about vaccines and mRNA and adenovirus vector. I think, Mr. Varnik, I think from an EBPMN perspective, we have a mandate not to discuss vaccines in this forum.
I was about to say that.
So we have a DCBMN for that. And here we are going to talk about only non-vaccine related stuff. So it's biologics, therapeutics, biosimilars, cell and gene therapy, and so on. So my apologies for not taking that question. There's another question from Dr. Francois. Don't you think the current production process, primarily CHO based, is no longer a long-term viable option? High capex, environmental impact, and so on.
So I would not. I agree with you.
They're referring to more of a mammalian cell line based.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
So I agree with you and I disagree with you. One, it does not have an environmental impact. So that's where probably the plant where we manufacture has a zero discharge. So even on the CHO cell line. So as in sustainability, we have been very, as a company, we have been very clear about the sustainability, and we have ensured that the plant which manufactures it is biologics have a zero discharge coming out of that. But definitely, when we have been talking about a productivity, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Syed.
Sorry, Dr. Keyur. Maybe because maybe there have been concerns that primarily in the mammalian cell line, or when you look at CHO-based products, largely the use is single-use systems. And we are generating tons of plastic and we have to incinerate them because they are not biodegradable. We're not yet there. So maybe that's the question.
So I chose that as a Zydus, we focus on sustainability, and that's why we have been on the steel bioreactors. So we are not on the
steel. Oh,
absolutely.
Nice.
We continue to be steel, and our new infrastructure is also the steel bioreactors. So we are very mindful of it. Yes, it is been difficult to operate with the contaminations coming in and all, where you have a very great advantage when you have been using a disposable one. But I said that our company is also equally focused on sustainability, and that's where we have steel-based bioreactors and capacity of 11 KLs, and now we'll be going to the 22 KL capacities, all through steel reactors.
That's news. That's interesting, insightful. This is news to me as well. I think there's a message to take home, because from a perception perspective, all of us think that when it comes to biosimilars, CHO cell line based systems, mammalian cell line based systems, it's all single use. But yes, we're glad to note that you've adapted all the processes to static and still continue to use steel.
Absolutely. And new plants are also coming on a steel. So we have been very mindful. And that's why you are right that it creates a lot of bio-waste. And that's why from sustainability perspective, it's been not that, it's costly to operate on that plants, but
of course, Dr. Francois is following up saying that the point here actually is that emerging technologies based on gene editing offer valuable alternatives. Yes, Dr. Francois, I think there are alternative emerging technologies that are coming in. I'm sure Zydus must be considering those going forward.
I agree, but now we are also talking about a bispecific monoclonal antibodies. So even in monoclonal antibodies also been moving. So there are now bispecifics coming in. So as an evolution, I'm sure, and this space is just on a cusp of evolution. We are talking about just from a monoclonal antibodies. Now we're talking about mRNA. We are talking about ADCs. ADCs was one of something most difficult, microbiome. Now you're talking about CAR-Ts, gene therapies, bispecifics. So there is huge to come, and I'm glad that we are, as Times of India, or New York Times talk about. Currently, we are into the golden age of medicines. Trust me, that's what New York Times talks about, saying that's in a golden age for medicines, because kind of revolutionary work the scientists have been doing across the geographies will definitely come out with then therapies which were currently neglected because of the smaller population size.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
CAR-Ts or gene therapies will be addressing those needs.
Yeah. I think we are well past the time. We had slotted about half an hour for our conversation and about 10 minutes for the Q&As. We are well past about 50 minutes. I'm sorry for that, Dr. Keyur. But this conversation has been quite interesting and the questions just kept coming up. And what I can see is that there have been about 60 plus participants all glued to their screens in the last about 50 minutes. So thanks for making it so interesting and insightful. I just have one last point for you before we conclude. And can you share a piece of advice for young professionals aspiring to make a mark in the biopharmaceutical field?
My only word will be stay hungry, stay curious, stay hungry. Keep yourself updated with the recent trends, novel technologies that have been coming, or novel therapeutic options that have been getting generated. And if you have been any part of the spectrum of biopharmaceuticals, I'm sure that each one of us can make a huge impact to the patient's life. So stay hungry, stay curious.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think "Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish" was one of our favorite books that we took up with about a decade ago.
Sure.
But yes, I think Zydus is doing its bit to nurture young talent. So I think that's again something fantastic that you've been doing. So thanks a lot, Dr. Keyur, for coming on to this, sharing your insights, thoughts very frankly. And I think we spent more time taking the questions from the audience than what we initially thought of chatting. I think it's interesting, insightful. Possibly we look forward to having many more such interactions with you for the benefit of the audience, the community, industry, and the young aspirants.
Thank you, Syed. It was my pleasure. And having as a co-panelist with you, it's an Indian honor. I worked with you, so I know that. And next time I should think that we should reverse the role. I will have
I would be glad to, as long as the topic is around vaccines.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we have comments thanking us for the informative webinar. Kudos to you. So thanks to you. Have a nice rest of the evening. Thanks to the wonderful audience that stayed glued and for participating. Wish you a very nice rest of the evening and the nice second half of the week. We're still not towards the weekend, so we still have another 3 working days to go. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all of you, for giving me a patient audience. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.